Hey there, my name is ZW Buckley, and welcome to a new episode of EQ&A, my series where I answer your biggest music questions and help you balance out your music production skills. Get the balance right. If you have a music question that you'd like me to answer in next month's episode of EQ&A, all you have to do is reply to the pinned comment below this video with your question. A new episode of EQ&A will premiere on the final Friday of every month, so make sure that you're subscribed, and if you want to be notified when it comes out, click the little bell icon. Let's jump into today's episode. What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 3 of EQ&A. I hope that you all have had a good month since the last time we have sat together in this corner of my studio. My month has been great, and I'm excited to be here and answer your questions now for the third time, 3 months strong. So I've got a few fresh questions this month, and then I went back and I grabbed some questions that I missed. Now, as I said in the intro to this video, if you want to have a music question answered by me in next month's episode, leave a reply to the pinned comment below. This series only continues if I have questions, so throw it into the pot. I want to answer it for you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So our first question is from Samuel James Music. How do you balance finding your own sound, in particular when mixing, versus using tried and true methods that work and have worked for years? This is a really good question. And I think how I would answer this is to maybe encourage you to really frame mixing as the art of making sure that the elements in your production are balanced against one another, and that you are always drawing to your listeners' focus the part of your production that you want to have attention on at any given moment. Mixing is a relational act. And so when you think about finding your own sound, mixing doesn't necessarily have to be something that stands in the way of achieving that. Think about arranging a bunch of objects for a photograph. What do you want front and center? What do you want here? What do you want there? Even in that arrangement, there is room to find yourself and how you express yourself and how you change that arrangement over time. And you can still do this using tried and true methods, the fundamentals of mixing, of creating clarity, balancing levels, balancing the spatial field. All of the common stuff that you hear discussed with mixing can still be done when you find your own sound. And I think that you'll find that ultimately mixing becomes a part of how you create your own sound. It's simply how you clarify the work that you've already done. So our next question is from Will Worth. Quote, "The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook," end quote, by William James. Any tips for overcoming the perfectionist trap? I saw your newsletter suggestion to aim for 70% good enough. Excellent advice. 1, Will, thank you so much for leaving a question. 2, thank you for plugging my newsletter. If you all watching this aren't subscribed, you should subscribe. I have a weekly newsletter that comes out every Monday in which I talk about the mindset and the struggles of being a music producer. Very different content than what I'm covering in this YouTube channel. So that might be worth getting that other perspective there. But to answer your question now, I would give you 2 answers. And my first answer is the maybe less fun answer, which is just release it anyway. Chances are whatever is holding you up is actually insecurity and not some legitimate deficiency with your music. Release it anyway. But my second answer, if you want a more practical approach, is that voice in the back of your head is not saying that your music needs to be perfect. It's actually saying that your music isn't good enough. And that voice, which we commonly just describe as imposter syndrome, is always vague. It says your song isn't good enough. And the way to get around that and to get over that is to make it be specific. So when it says your song isn't good enough, you ask what part of the song, and it says the bass isn't good enough. And you say, what about the bass? And it says, I can't hear the bass in the mix. And you say, what part of the bass can't you hear in the mix? And then it says, I can't hear all the cool distortion that you added to the mid-range. And then there you go. You went from hating your song to having an actionable step that you need to correct in the mix. And you need to do this over and over and over again. And eventually this is going to just start becoming part of your workflow, and it's going to get faster for you. But that voice in the back of your head is not worth listening to. It is only worth clarifying. And then go back to my first answer and release the music. Release it anyway. Just release it. Okay, so our next question is from Hippies Olfro or Hippie Soul Fro, or it could be something else altogether. But I like Hippies Olfro, like a hippie with an old afro or something. It seems like warm and cozy and familiar. So our next question is from Hippies Olfro. Sound design fundamentals, wavetable design, music theory? What should we master first if the goal is to transfer our emotions into our art? I love this question so much, specifically because your ultimate goal is the correct goal, which is to express yourself. And too many music producers somehow lose sight of the fact that the goal of making music is to express yourself. And so your question is great. What do I learn? And perhaps in what order do I learn it so that I can express myself fully? And the thing that I would tell you is to think about music production as a language. As children, we're able to express ourselves, but we express ourselves better as we get older because we have a wider vocabulary. And so when we think about music production, the various components of the process are your vocabulary. A filter, that's a piece of vocabulary. Learning how to use a compressor, that's a piece of vocabulary. All of these little things add up to be the body of words that you know. But how do we create sentences? And that is signal flow. I could make a 10-hour video about why signal flow is the most important thing in all of music production. It is everything. You need to know, how does MIDI and audio get in and out of your computer? How does it move around your computer? How can you route it in your computer? Signal flow is how we can look at a synthesizer and then conceptualize and generate amazing sounds. It's how you build cool effect chains. It's how you make great recordings. Everything is signal flow. It's taking that vocabulary that you know, and it is learning how to string it into more compelling sentences. So I would check in on where your vocabulary is. Try to pick up a new word every week, and then practice making sentences with that. So practice your signal flow. Keep learning new skills, but practice your signal flow. That is the key to expression. Great question. Great question. Okay, our next question is from Andy Cordy 5190. Vocoder has always confused me. I've seen some videos where interesting and exciting effects are possible, but I get confused about routing. I know it's a big subject, but a 101 with some pointers to more advanced experimental things would be great. I write lyrics and words are important to me, but my voice has gotten old, and I believe it might help me understand more and better uses for my limited vocal potential. Well, Andy, the first thing that I would say to you is that your voice is seasoned, and maybe your voice is different. You might not have as many notes as you used to. Hell, I'm only 33 and I do not have as many notes as when I was 23. But your voice has a weight to it that it didn't have before. And instead of yearning for what you didn't have, I would encourage you to embrace it. But we can do that and make cool ass sounds with a vocoder. So let's talk about a vocoder. A vocoder works by taking the entire frequency spectrum and breaking it up into a discrete number of bands. A vocoder combines two signals. You have a modulator and a carrier. For the modulator, the vocoder tracks the amplitude envelope for each of those independent bands. For the carrier, the vocoder tracks the frequency response for each of those bands. And so the vocoder combines the two. And so what you end up having then is the frequency from your carrier being output with the amplitude envelope of your modulator. That's how you can take the sound of a voice and make it sound like a synthesizer. And so when you think about all the various controls that you find on the vocoder, they are all manipulating some aspect of that relationship or equation. And as far as really cool things that you can do, funny enough, this question, when I first got it from you, was the inspiration behind the theme song to this series. Something that I plan on releasing as a single and part of that EP that I need you all to continue bugging me about. But one thing that I like doing with a vocoder and that I do in this track is I took all of the instruments that I was using for the drop, grouped them together, and then used that as the carrier for the vocoder. And these instruments are all pinging random notes here and there, and it makes this really crazy, intense sound through the vocoder. I then recorded it multiple times and I chopped it up into small samples with take lanes and combined them together, and it creates this really cool layer in the track. And that idea was born because of your question. I just didn't get around to answering it the first time. So thank you for a really, really great question and for inspiring a piece of my own music. And I'm hoping that this answer will then inspire you to make some really great music of your own. With that, I'm sure, excellent voice you still have. And our final question for today is one that I didn't get to in an earlier episode. So, Jabstep5739 asks, what's the best way of learning music you'd like to replicate as a beginner? So I have two answers to that question, and this is assuming that you know your music production fundamentals. So the first answer is to focus on the micro, by which I mean that every style of music has conventions that each of the parts play. And without knowing those conventions, it's going to be difficult to replicate that style. For example, if you don't understand how a house drum beat is constructed, it's going to be really difficult to make great house music. So I would learn those conventions for each of the parts first. My second answer then is to scale up and focus on the macro. So I would encourage you to make what is commonly called a production map. So take a song that you really like, load a copy of it into your DAW, set the grid to the tempo of that song, and then use markers to note on the timeline where the sections change. And then create MIDI tracks for as many different elements in the production that you hear, and create empty MIDI clips whenever you hear that instrument playing. And then delete that song from your DAW, and what you have left is a production map. And you can use that map and then fill in your own music. If you do this with a couple of songs that you really, really love, it is going to teach you something every single time. It's going to make you a better, more critical listener, and it's going to help you think about the overall architecture of a song and why it works. Hopefully that helps. And that's it for this month, everybody. Thank you so much. Hopefully, for those of you who asked questions, those were helpful answers, and I'm hoping for all of you watching that you learned something as well. If you have a music question that you'd like me to answer in the next episode of EQ&A, all you have to do is reply to the pinned comment directly below this video. I'm looking forward to reading them and answering them at the end of November. And I'm trying to now reach 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment, because it really is helping me to grow this channel that literally started at 600 subscribers at the top of this year. And it's just crazy to me to be at 12,000 now. So I guess, we're stretch goaling this year. But that's it for today. Till next time.